Now, I'm getting somewhere in the text, but I'm about to fly into orbit right now when I tell you something. I don't care how far you've fallen, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care what the media or your family has said about you. I don't care where you were last week. I don't care what you struggle with. I don't care what you've been smoking, what you've been popping, who you've been sleeping with, and where you've been going. There's going to come a time in your life that God's going to take all that failure and all that disobedience and all that rebellion and all that sin and all that hell that you've been walking through. And you think God's done with me. He can never use me again. I'm never going back to church. God's never going to forgive me. God's never going to bless me. I'm never going to make it. I'm no value. I'm going to blow my brains out. And you better know something. Through the process of time, your hair is going to start growing again. And somebody needs to know you ain't going to stay bald spiritually too long, because God's going to resurrect you. There's a time in our church. Now, I'm just talking for a little while. Some of y'all drove a long way. So if you're expecting 10 more minutes, you better just go ahead and leave now. There's a time that I went through utter failure as a pastor, as a husband, as a dad, as a Christian. The media was so intense. I can handle what they're saying now, but what they were saying 4 years ago was so heinous, so wicked, so vile, so vitriolic. Milo saw it one morning at Bible study and gave me a little bitty old rope, had a knot on the end of it. He said, I feel like I need to give you this because you look like you've slid to the end of your rope. Just tie a knot, Pastor. Hold on, just tie a knot. I keep that rope with me in my office every day, see it all the time. Man, I tell you, we had 500 people leave our church. Now, thank God a lot of them came back because they got caught up in the media frenzy and realized it was a bunch of fiasco and a bunch of nonsense, right? And I thought to myself, the pastoral unpardonable has been committed to me, and there's no way the church is ever going to grow. Nobody's ever going to show up. My meetings began to dry up. Before we ever went with the originality of which we've put out 2 best-selling books through Global Vision Press, thank God, and I'm glad the Lord waited. We had a book deal. It all fell through. I just signed the rights to a television show every week for Global Vision to be on a television show with CRTV. They called and said, no, too much heat. Cancel the deal. I was addicted every day to getting on Facebook to try to figure out how I could stop what the people were saying when I knew it wasn't true. It was like a locomotive, man. It was out of the station, and there was no way to stop it. There was no way it was going to ever slow down. Things started happening. Look, I'm very open about my past because I've got one. That's why I'm a pastor. I put my past where yours belongs, behind you. Quit looking at it. Quit eating on it. Quit feeding on it. It's behind you. We've all got one. And if you're perfect, don't hang around us. You'll mess us up. Because we are jacked up, fall down the steps, crazy up in this place. Spider monkey crazy sometimes, right? So I'll be honest. If all I ever did was Google me, I wouldn't like me either. I mean, I just wouldn't. I mean, they said some things that were so unbelievable, so asinine, so crazy, so out there, so flamboyantly, and such a huge lie that I would lay in bed at night and I thought, there's no way. And I felt a little bit, if I can use the analogy, like my power had been cut. I'd sit in the parking lot over here by this little chapel. That little chapel fit in here 3 times or 4 maybe 5. It's amazing what God does when you get out of the way and just let Him. I'd sit over in that car. We'd roll up in the parking lot, and I'd sit in that car. 15, 20 minutes. I couldn't even come inside. I'd weep and bawl and squall like a little child. Didn't even know why I was crying. I'd wipe my eyes, wipe my nose, wipe the tears off my chin, straighten my tie up, walk in, preach like a wild man, like I had the whole tiger of the world by the tail, and I'd get back in the car and go back home and cry more. But let me tell you what happened. My hair started growing back. Your hair started growing back. You thought you were done. You thought you were knocked down. Yeah, but you weren't knocked out and the bell didn't ring yet. And if there's breath in you, there's still hope.